So Russia has now officially signed a deal with Belarus to deploy and move tactical nuclear weapons, and is doing so to put them in Belarus and move them closer to the other side of Ukraine. It makes you wonder why they're doing this. Are they prepared to use them and start a nuclear war there? Here is U.S. State Department spokesman Miller on what is happening here.
What is your reaction, though, to this new announcement from Russia and Belarus about tactical nukes? Is this symbolic, showboating, posturing, more serious?
I think what I'd say, it's another provocative and irresponsible action, both by Russia and by the Lukashenko regime. I will say, for our part, we see no reason to change our nuclear posture, nor any sign that Russia intends to use nuclear weapons. But we will continue to strengthen and reinforce our alliances with our NATO allies, even in the face of continued, as I said, really irresponsible and provocative actions, both by Russia and, in this instance, by Belarus.
Now, the Kremlin is also reporting today that in a phone call with Brazil's President Lula, Putin confirmed that Russia is, quote, open to a dialogue over Ukraine. He's said this before. Is there anything more serious about this coming in the aftermath of China's intervention and pressure on him to get serious about negotiations and in anticipation of the counteroffensive from Ukraine?
I think the most important thing to emphasize here is what you just said, Andrea. He said this before. He said this on a number of occasions, but then his actions have never backed up his words. If Putin wanted to get serious about negotiations, he could do so at any moment. The Ukrainians, I believe, would welcome real negotiations, but those negotiations would have to be recognizing that the importance of Ukraine's territorial integrity and Ukraine's sovereignty. Vladimir Putin, really since the outset of this war, has made claim after claim after claim, and in every instance, it's been another attempt just to justify his aggression. So if the president of Russia wanted this war to end, he could end it today by withdrawing his troops back to his borders. But of course, we've seen zero indication that that's what he intends to do.
And staying in Russia, the Moscow court this week ordered Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich to be jailed through August, extending by 3 months this detention. Is there any hope and anything new on consular visits? There have been 2 requests from the State Department for the ambassador or others to come, and both have been denied.
Yeah, in fact, Andrea, there have been 3 requests just in the last few hours. The Russians denied our latest request, the 3rd request that we've made for consular access to Evan Gershkovich since April. We had officials from the embassy in court this week to see him at his detention hearing. We have had 1 consular visit with him. Our ambassador, Lynn Tracy, was able to visit him in prison in April. But since then, the Russians have denied 3 consular visits. They are, of course, required under consular obligations, consular conventions that they agreed to provide us with access to him, and they've refused to do so. And I would just say that their actions with respect to consular access are really in keeping with their lawless actions throughout this case. The charges against Evan Gershkovich are trumped up, of course. He is not a spy. He is a journalist, and so we will continue to press for his release, as we will press for the release of another wrongfully detained American, Paul Whelan. And I would just say quickly and more broadly, there really is no higher priority for this administration than the return of wrongfully detained Americans. It's something the Secretary Blinken works on, spends a lot of his time working on. It's something that's a priority for the president. Since the beginning of this administration, we have secured the release of more than 24 wrongfully detained Americans, and we will continue to make it a high priority, in this case in Russia, for Evan Gershkovich and Paul Whelan.
And the other adversary, the superpower adversary, is China, of course. State Department, you yesterday warning American companies, as the NSA did and Microsoft initially did, to watch out for a new type of Chinese state-sponsored malware that has been trying to insert into computer systems, infrastructure, critical infrastructure, and warning the private sector to ramp up your defenses. How concerned are you about this? And are you concerned that this could disrupt any attempt to thaw the relationship? Especially, we have, for the first time, a cabinet-level meeting right now with the Chinese Commerce Minister, Wang Wentao, in town, having dinner last night with the Commerce Secretary, Raimondo.
Yeah, I will say we're, of course, always concerned with any illicit attempt to access U.S. critical infrastructure. In this instance, we've seen such attempts by an entity sponsored by the Chinese government. So what we've done is what we've tried to do since the beginning of this administration is work with our partners in the private sector to harden defenses, to share information. It's been a top priority for us, for the administration, to share information with the private sector and for the private sector to provide us information so we can work together on addressing these types of threats. And as for the broader relation, one of the things I'll say is that in our view, this just heightens the importance of us being able to engage openly and honestly with the Chinese government. Obviously, we have a number of concerns about Chinese actions. This is one of them, but there are a great deal others. And we always want to be able to raise those concerns openly and forthrightly with the Chinese government. At the same time, we think it's important that we manage the relationship. China is an incredibly important country. It's important economically. It's important militarily. It's important diplomatically. And so it's important that we be able to manage that relationship responsibly. I know Secretary Blinken looks forward to being able to reschedule the trip to China that was postponed in February and looks to be able to do so as soon as conditions allow.
So this kind of just goes to show you here, China really just asked here, just in the last few days here, that the U.S. and China should come together to breach their differences and have a better working relationship. But then we get this information here that they've been trying to hack us the whole time. And the information here that they're calling for Ukraine to basically surrender the land that Russia occupies to Russia, which basically undermines everything the United States and NATO and every country that is supporting Ukraine to Russia. So it basically goes and says that China is actually siding with Russia here. And then basically China is against the United States because the position right now is the United States is helping Ukraine. They're defending Ukraine. They're giving them weapons to defend Ukraine. And so is the majority of the world. Almost all of Europe is as well. And China comes out and says Ukraine should just surrender that land to Russia. You guys can let me know your thoughts here on this. Yeah, this also comes here as Russia angered by the largest U.S. aircraft carrier visit to Norway. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the absolutely massive aircraft carrier, visit to Norway. And just to give you an idea of how big this aircraft carrier is, this one is our largest. Look at how big this thing is. This is a modern marvel to even think that something this top heavy floats and doesn't tip over. When you just look at it, it's amazing, right? Wow. Unbelievable here. You can see all the aircraft on top of there. Absolutely remarkable, right? In addition to this, Ukraine targets Russian oil pipeline installations with drones. Russian media reports. I'm sure Putin is going to be pretty angered about this. Yeah, Ukraine struck oil pipeline installations deep inside Russia on Saturday with a series of drone attacks, including on a station serving the vast Druzhba oil pipeline that sends Western Siberian crude to Europe, according to Russian media. Remember, most of Europe is not buying Russian oil, though. Ukraine drones attacks inside Russia have been growing in intensity in recent weeks. And the New York Times reported that U.S. intelligence believed Ukraine was behind the drone attacks on the Kremlin earlier this month. Ukraine has not publicly acknowledged launching attacks against targets inside Russia. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry was not available for comment. This was one of the world's largest oil pipelines, the newspaper said. So Maybe Russia getting a taste of their own medicine, but I'll show you what Russia does instead. Instead of attacking infrastructure, what Russia attacks is, yeah, at least 2 killed and 23 injured in Russian missile strike on a Ukrainian clinic. Yeah, we're injured in a Russian missile strike on a medical building in the central Ukrainian city of Dnipro, the regional governor said Friday. President Zelensky denounced the missile attack on a psychological clinic and veterinary clinic as, quote, another crime against humanity, and said, quote, only an evil state can fight against clinics. There can be no military purpose in this. It is pure Russian terror. Russia has chosen the path of evil on its own will, and it will not abandon this path by itself, Zelensky said. We must defeat terror, and we will do it, Ukraine and the entire free world together. And that's a 69-year-old man and another man had been found in the rubble of the veterinary clinic. And a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old were among the injured. Wow. So there you have it. You can let me know your thoughts here in the comments. I'll keep you up to date here with everything going on here in our country and around the world. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe down below. Click the bell icon so you don't miss out on any new videos that come out here on our YouTube channel at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Of course, it's completely free to subscribe. And thanks for liking and share these videos here with anybody or on your social media so that we can spread the word here. Here's some videos you should watch next. 99% of Americans were not expecting this. And what China just did has Americans very worried. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.